Welcome back again to the Imaginary Gallery. We are in the reflection phase of the chapter in Sandra Brown's book, How to Spot a Dangerous Man or Person Before You Get Involved. So, we're talking about the addict and reflecting upon it. So she started out by talking about the party boy, which I said could be a party girl as well, but it may promise a good time, but by the end of the chapter she's stating you'll understand why he or she offers less than a good time for you or anyone else. This chapter I've had some experience with, and we'll start with, and when she talks about the dichotomous reaction, we either shiver or shrug. She means the shiver would be we fear this person for the pain and havoc that he or she can wreak on our lives. Or, as far as the shrug, it's we just don't think that this person's someone to fear. Like, it's an addict, big deal, maybe I can control it, is a common thought. Sandra mentions how many people end up with such addicts precisely because they're not on the lookout for them. And if it's an addict, it's not usually going to walk around with an A on its forehead or walk around saying, "Hi, I'm an addict. Oh, nice to meet you." Well, some might, but it's rare. And she talks about the two categories of addiction, which was interesting, where she talks about the well-known one, which is harmful substances and behaviors like gambling, sex, strip clubs, pornography, whatever the case may be. And the other group, though, which I'd never heard before till I read this book, which is the pseudo-productive addictions. And this is the one I figured I'd expand a little bit more on, because she says it's common for us not to really think that it's really something bad, such as addiction to work, addiction to productivity. Normally you wouldn't think that was a problem because of the American work ethic. What's more American, she says, than hard work? Well, when the behavior is compulsive, of course, she states it can create a truly destructive pattern, which I agree. If your spouse or whatever is busy 16 hours a day doing something to do with a work project and doesn't have any time for you or the family, if it's a day or two, okay, but if it's like an ongoing thing, well, you've got some problems. She also states that these can take several forms. Those who expect perfection from themselves and others, and some constantly need approval. And even more insidious, she talks about, is when a person works really hard to rescue family members or loved ones who are often other addicts by never allowing them to face the consequences of what their pseudo-productive behavior is causing for them. Then she goes into the unproductive addictions, which she says seems fruitless, and that these addicts may lose everything, can't hold down a job, and I've known a few of these throughout my history, where they can't keep the job, and when they lose the job, it's never their fault. It's, oh, well, the boss was too strict and didn't like me, or they had too many people and they had to let me go or something. And but I don't think so. But people will try to tell you this stuff, especially the psychopath or the cluster B, who is basically looking to you to support him or her and just can't seem to keep a job, even though you've had yours for multiple years. This one just, something always comes up that made them lose it, and it wasn't their fault. Wrong. But one thing she does mention, which I thought I'd expand on, is some people are addicted to, which is thrill-seeking behaviors. Especially if you're dealing with a cluster B, which dangerous can include cluster B, or it can include other things that we haven't mentioned. But I have noticed that there are those who are addicted to thrill-seeking behaviors, aside from gambling and whatever she's saying. Some of them are hooked on, let's just say, pretending to be the perfect mate for you, knowing exactly what you think the perfect mate isn't, and then when you're not there, these people will actually engage in the very activities that you feel would not be good, and they keep it a secret. And that's a thrill, because they've done this thing they know that you would flip out about if you knew about, but they keep it secret from you. And the thrill is carrying on every day as they watch you being nice to them, as they think to themselves, if he or she knew what I just did, wouldn't be quite so nice. But for some reason, this adds to their supply. It makes them high. It gets them stoned. Speaking of addicts, which again is sick, but that's what happens. They love to go with you to some dinner event, and one of your coworkers is really hot, and you notice eye contact and wonder, oh no, what if they try to hook up? And you say, are you interested in my coworker? No, I look at you and you only. And then, of course, that gives them the seed, and the thrill-seeking would be to find a way to hook up with your coworker and not tell you about it. So then when you eventually find out, it's so shocking to you, it creates the type of negative energy vibrations that these people thrive upon. And that, again, sounds sick, but it's what happens, because you've tipped them off to what's really going to get you, and then the person does it, and then it's like, that's going to cause some pain, because these people are devils, they're evil. And then she says that you might think addictions are easily identifiable, but sometimes, well, they've been normalized by generations of the family. And it was interesting when she talks about the families like who work in businesses that like deal with addiction type behaviors. Like if you own a casino, well, people go in there, call 1-800-BETS-OFF gambling problem, and the strip joints and stuff like that. But again, I think she's kind of a little judgmental here in some ways, because it sounds kind of preachy, which, like, she's basically indirectly stating that if someone owns a particular business, such as a gambling place or a strip place or other businesses whose success relies on addiction, like a bar or something, I think that she's just a little strict, because you can own a bar. It's a business, so it's kind of like she's trying to tell you, oh, if you meet someone and their family owns a bar, oh, they're dangerous. Well, they could be, but so could a child of a family who owns a church. So she's a little, I don't know, that's just my opinion. But and then she says we miss addictions in individuals who seem unlikely candidates for them, like that old 80-year-old woman she talks about, which I pictured a movie I saw with, I forgot which movie, but this old lady who was doing all that kind of stuff. But she's talking about hidden addictions that may exist. Well, honey, Sandra, there can be all kinds of hidden things with any kind of person you're dating, but she's sticking to her subject. And then how the addiction impacts everyone around the person, even if you're just casually dating. She says you'll eventually be affected by the lifestyle because she says because all addictions are life disrupting. Well, I happen to try to shy away from any type of all or nothing type statements, and sorry, Sandra, in this case I have to disagree somewhat because I must confess I am a recovered Candy Crush Saga addict. Yes, there was a time. Well, first off, when I heard about games on phones, I would see people playing them and think, what are they doing? And I would just kind of roll my eyes at it. But then one day I was in a meeting with my coworkers, and one such individual mentioned how she just loves that Candy Crush Saga game, and I thought, it's a game on your phone, what are you talking about? But for some reason, maybe it was a demon, lured me to think, well, what exactly is it all about? So I had it on my phone, so I figured, well, it's here, I might as well try it, and I checked it out, and guess what happened? Whatever demonic forces are programmed into it took hold, because I would play it and think, oh, this is kind of neat. And then I would play it again and play it again and find myself playing it ridiculous amounts of time. And if it was somebody else and it was me previously, I'd be like, what are you wasting all your time on that phone game for? It's a game. But something in it was demonic. And yes, I was a Candy Crush addict. But guess what happened? I broke it. So she also mentions elsewhere that again, that word all addictions are progressive. Well, sorry, honey, but the addiction to Candy Crush Saga was regressive because it stopped. And I don't ever wake up and think, oh, I can't wait to play No, but I used to wake up thinking, I can't wait to play the next episode, the next level. Oh, and that's gone, and it's been extinguished. Of course, then Sandra might argue, well, you found something else, like what? You're now addicted to making YouTube videos telling people about the devil. Maybe she's right there. Then she mentions how the addicts battle lifelong urges. Even some in recovery have continual relapses no matter what they use as their agent, which is the substance or behavior that serves as the drug of choice. And she says it's common for them to flip back and forth between periods of actively using and then periods of sobriety. And I guess she's just trying to warn you if somebody says, oh, hi, I used to be addicted to crack and alcohol and Vicodin, but now I'm not. And, like, when did that stop? Oh, yesterday. Well, chances are it'll return tomorrow. That maybe the person has gone a lengthy period of sobriety from whatever substance or behavior. Well, it does not automatically mean that they've worked on the issues that connected with that addiction. And the main part here that she states, which I agree with, is it certainly doesn't mean the addict has developed any kind of relationship skills. And she calls that the dry drunk behavior. And that's even if it's not alcohol. So, yeah, you can be clean and sober and still emotionally retarded, which is very common, because just because the substance is taken away or the behavior doesn't mean that they're somebody who can relate emotionally to another human being in a realistic manner, especially in many cases where they've learned and been conditioned to hide who and what they're really about, to just give you a charming compliment or flattery to avoid reality. And then she mentions how many of these people have financial difficulties that they won't disclose to you, which can happen. And if you happen to stumble across some bill that's like overdue 1,000 days, like, what's this? How dare you spy on my personal things? Well, some people won't discuss these things, and they'll have excuses for them. So I'm guessing she's just stating to look out for such things. And here she goes with her all or nothing thinking, saying all addictions are progressive. There are no regressive addictions. Sorry, Sandra. But then she talks about the occasional out-of-control usage not concerning you. Remember that there's domestic violence, which I've known people like this. In fact, I used to be involved with one who actually admitted. Yes, in my experience, I've had the fortune or misfortune to have met several kinds of people, several types that have several stories, and I used to know one particular. It was a gay male, and he would actually admit, he would say, I'm addicted to sex. I have to come every day. And he would talk about previous partners he'd had and how my other partner, he just wanted to watch porn all day. So I had to take matters into my own hands, and what he would periodically do would be start some kind of argument, disagreement, pressing buttons it knows will work, and then would say, fine, I'm leaving. And it would take its suitcase, and it would put panties in it, and toothbrush, and toothpaste, and overnight type things, and it would go to some bar, find some young kid, start giving it drink after drink after drink, and then lure it to some motel room or something. And it would do that, and it would think it was justified, but, well, it's my partner's fault because he doesn't pay enough attention to me, and this is all cluster B. I mean, it fits right in with that, and I'm trying to, like, it's connecting between the dangerous, because part of dangerous is cluster B, so it's kind of the same thing in many cases. But there, I've had that, and I've had the thrill seeker type too, which like they just keep finding the next thrill, and after a while, it's like, is that how you spend your life, coming up with these thrills? Anyway, it's just not something I've ever. Well, maybe when I was a kid. When I was a kid, maybe, but that was many years ago. And then in her chapter, which I didn't really cover, but she covers the different types. Well, I did mention a few, but types of addictions, and you could list a lot of things there. And then it was interesting how she says that if we don't tell ourselves the truth about our real motives for dating, that chances are good that sooner or later we'll be seriously involved with the addict, because we may just tell ourselves, oh, well, this is just for fun, but then it becomes more and more regular, and before you know it, it's like, oh, I'm with a fully fledged crack addict, and I've asked him or her to move in. Oh dear, and there may be problems down the road. Or they're the ones who think, that's okay, he's a crackhead. I'll show him the way. I'll show him. That probably isn't going to work. Unless, of course, the crackhead really is interested in becoming a non-crackhead. But if it isn't, forget it. Her love will not drive him to sobriety. And some, it says, will keep their partner in the relationship just with the promises that they're going to quit. But then they switch to something else. So last week it was pills. Now it's strip clubs. Ugh. And it's interesting how she mentions how some have numerous addictions, that they kind of like trade one for the other. So they may have one this month, another one next month, and then they'll say, like, if it was crack last month, and the partner is like, I can't believe you're on crack, it's bad for you. They're like, oh, I haven't taken crack in a whole month. And really now it's strip clubs or casinos, but that'll be kept quiet. Or it could be food. They become obese and then out of shape, and then that can cause issues as well. And then she talks about the addict unfortunately, you won't always know when or if you're at risk financially because of the deal with the person with a hidden life. You know, these people are like, if they're cluster B, they're all talk like, oh, I've got plenty of money for us. And then if you check it out and find out the money's gone, well, that's because the person has a hidden life, and they probably will never even admit to whatever they did with that money. They'll just make excuses, and that's no good. The point is, if you meet someone who claims to have been an addict of any kind, whether it's substances or behaviors, and if they're like trying to rush you into something, the good question to ask is, okay, so you used to be a whatever addict, well, how'd you overcome that? And if you get a ridiculous, superficial, phony-sounding answer, run. Because if it's just, oh, well, yesterday I just decided I don't want to do that anymore, that is not a realistic response, so steer clear if possible. Oh, for the last 30 years I used to take 30 gallons of grain alcohol every day and 60 barbiturate pills every day. Oh, but yesterday I decided I don't want to do that anymore. I'm like, really? Okay. Not realistic. So basically she's telling you to look into yourself, which I think is always a good idea for any kind of thing, not just this, but look, if you keep having certain issues or problems, look at yourself and the choices you're making and figure, well, why is this happening repeatedly? And then try to find it out. And if you're a cluster B, of course, you'll never come to that answer. It'll always be someone else's fault. But if you're not a cluster B, as I'm glad I'm not, I can look at things and realize, well, maybe these decisions I've been making have been the wrong one. I'll try a new one. But and she talks again about if they're sober or in recovery. She says to proceed with caution, which I think you should proceed with caution with anybody new, anybody in your life. And then again, she mentions the relationship skills, which includes being honest about your desires and your viewpoints, but that's saved for other videos. And then now we have Miranda's story. Not from Sex and the City, I'm assuming, but Miranda, who had never been involved with anyone besides her husband, had been married for 25 years when her husband divorced her. Soon thereafter, she met Roy. He was a sober alcoholic who had been in AA for 15 years, and he still attended 3 or 4 meetings a week. He seemed attentive to her pain and offered some of the wisdom he'd learned in AA. Miranda fell for Roy in a serious way, but he kept avoiding letting the relationship go any deeper. Finally, Miranda asked him about these patterns. He said, I'm still not good at relationships. They scare me, and I really don't want to commit to one. Well, Miranda asked if he would go to couples counseling. She must really have liked him, and hoped to find a way of working through his fear of relationships. Roy had said, I'll just go to more AA meetings until I figure it out. Well, Miranda pointed out that he'd been going to several meetings a week for 15 years. And still he's unable to have a serious relationship. So obviously, she said, he needs something more than just meetings. Well, he refused counseling, and the relationship ended. Now she follows this up with, if you want to consider getting involved with a sober or recovering addict, here are some guidelines to follow. She says you need to understand that years of sobriety do not guarantee lasting sobriety. Judge the person's overall relationship skills instead of the numbers of years of sobriety. Pay attention to how healthy the person's extended relationships are now, such as those with friends, children, previous partners, parents, etc. Observe what kind of communication skills the person has. Can he or she ask for what he or she needs without drama, silence, or pouting? Observe how he or she works on itself given the addiction that's being battled. Does the person go to the 12-step meeting? Has it been in counseling or group therapy? Observe how much insight the person seems to have about the battle with the addiction. Is it realistic about the lifelong impact? If not, it's unlikely to continue going to counseling or meetings to promote recovery. Now here we go with the people's compassionate side makes many of us vulnerable to dating addicts, people who are mentally ill and parental seekers. We would love nothing more than to nurture such a person. No, these people have history that shows the person's in need of love, compassion, and management. Well, people like that are prime targets for these dangerous pathological people. And she says to remember one of the mantras of this book: you cannot heal what is wrong with this dangerous person. This is certainly true with any addict, she says. Rescuing someone is not the same as having a relationship with them, by anyone's definition, except for, she says, maybe that of an addict or his partner. Over time, we come to realize that a life of rescuing and waiting for a person's sobriety leaves us emotionally barren. We have the choice of avoiding that dance of despair by learning to spot the addict before you get involved, and that's the whole point of her book here. And to do this, she says, you must recognize early signs enough to allow you a quick exodus before you become fully engaged with the person. She says that exiting based on a clue is far better than existing based on hardcore, repeated evidence.
Oh, I bet you can guess. I'm the life of the party here, with gray aliens, reptilian, humanoids, all kinds of creatures. And each time I malfunction, I just take another body. It's a great life, and I love it. I love to watch those people we see on television in the government, in the White House. They're perverted. Oh my God, Obama is a fag. I saw him kissing Omar Mateen nude. It was Omar's clone, which they used one of for the Orlando shooting. And that one was murdered, but the other one wasn't. I think he and Obama are lovers. Plus Michelle, she's a man. She's got a cock. I had her put it inside me, and I forced her to stick it inside the hole in Michael Jackson's nose, and she came inside of it. Just makes me so real. I said no. Yeah, I said no. Everything bad and then I come along and go no.